Hi everybody, welcome to this installation of the High Five videos. Today we're speaking with Matt again from Patient Plan Direct. Hi Matt.
Hi Dan, how are you?
Very good, very good. So today we are talking about NHS conversions. At Hive, it's something we've spoken about a lot over the years, and we've overseen quite a few even before the pandemic, and generally our reasons were commercially led. You know, broadly speaking, a clinical room might produce £1,000 a day doing NHS. But if you open up kind of private in that room, it might be £2,000 or £3,000. So a fairly kind of cold commercial approach. But actually, we've learned more and more through the years about the ability to deliver kind of more and better dentistry, possibly. So now everything's getting a bit tighter. And possibly it's a bit harder to have a sustainable business with the NHS contract and some uncertainty around it. We're seeing loads of our clients coming to us and saying, you know, how does it work? And actually what we've seen since the pandemic is it works a bit better and more people are signing up because almost the audience seems to be a bit more receptive to it, I suppose. But I'd like to kind of speak to the expert on it, I suppose, and get Matt's opinion. So Matt, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Matt. So I'm one of the business development managers at Patient Plan Direct. But my background is that I was a practice manager. So, you know, I worked in practice for a number of years before going to work for another major plan provider. I then dropped back into practice management during the pandemic because I just sort of didn't want to detach myself from grassroots dentistry. And I've joined Patient Plan Direct at the start of the year.
Thanks. That's great, Matt. So I've kind of said, you know, Hive talk a lot about financial elements. That's, you know, that's what our clients are interested in us for. But why would a practice right now be considering converting the stable income of the NHS, a stable-ish patient base? Why would you risk that?
I think firstly, is the NHS as stable as people believe it is? Because it looks like great income, but if you don't jump through all those hoops and deliver all that treatment, you're going to be asked for a lot of money back. And I think pre-pandemic, NHS dentists had well-maintained patient lists as standard. You know, they'd seen them for a number of years, but they then ended up having perhaps 2 years between seeing that patient, and all of a sudden their well-maintained patient list has become much higher need, because even the most motivated patient, if they haven't seen a dental professional for 2 years, has lost motivation, has stopped cleaning incidentally or as efficiently, and therefore there's stuff that's reared its head, and all of a sudden there's lots of treatment to deliver. But I think, you know, from a dentist perspective, some dentists tell us that they want more clinical freedom. They want to be able to offer a full range of treatments to everybody that comes into the practice, and they just don't feel that the NHS is perhaps compatible with that. Some want a bit more control over determining where they're going as a clinician, but also where they're taking their business. And actually the NHS can be very restrictive because it can often put a lot of pressure on a practice. It becomes the primary focus in how do we deliver this contract year on year on year. And all of a sudden, your private elements or the independent parts of your business start to just dwindle and disappear into the background because you just don't have the energy or time to focus on them. Some people want to just have those longer appointment times. They've gone through the pandemic, had that reduced period of 45, 60, 65% activity under the NHS, and have all of a sudden just sat back and thought, how can I ever return to 100% activity? Because I just need this, you know, having those longer appointments has just meant the care that I can deliver to my patients is so much better. And I go home at night and I sleep a bit easier because I know I've had time to actually talk to my patients and understand what they're looking for. But also I think from a business growth point of view, you just open up an unlimited potential. You reduce that target-driven mentality of the NHS because you remove it out of your practice, and all of a sudden you can look at lots of different avenues. You can really do what you want, and you know, you reignite that passion for dentistry that probably sent you to dental school in the first place.
Yeah, that's it. I remember being in a lecture, it's probably 5 years ago, and learning that when you're recommending 2 treatment types and it's an NHS patient, you can't actually say that the private one is better, even though kind of objectively it would be a better treatment. And I just thought it's kind of you know, there's probably 100 things like that in NHS dentistry, but it really struck me as, wow, it's actually limiting the dentist's ability to treat in the way that they'd like. I will say that I do have a lot of clients that do great dentistry on the NHS and do really love the system as well, but that's just kind of one side of things. And what would be the key benefits of introducing a plan then, if you're looking at?
I think, yeah, if you're gonna look to do an NHS conversion, you know, as you alluded to at the start, Dan, the NHS does offer financial security to the practice in some shape or form. And so it's going to be really important that you can give yourself some ongoing financial security on a private basis. Now, you will never get that financial security solely out of pay-as-you-go patients, because they're always in control over how and when they visit the practice. And that means they probably visit less frequently. They don't budget for their appointments very well, so things get delayed and pushed into the future. So by offering a dental plan, you give yourself some ongoing financial security, because we would look to replace a proportion of your NHS contract value with monthly plan income. That recurring income is then going to land into the business month on month and give you that financial security that you're looking for. By having a plan, you also help patients budget for their dentistry. So you encourage them to come back at the right time, because they're able to pay by direct debit. Just remove any need for them to have to think about dentistry in between their appointments. And you know they're going to come back every 6 months. Mm-hmm. Getting them back regularly improves their loyalty to you, because you're able to build a much tighter, more meaningful relationship with a patient you see every 6 months than one you see every 18 months. Mm-hmm. And that means that you're able to upsell other treatments to them, because they have trust in what you're telling them. So when they come in and they start to talk to you about nice to have things, you know what, I'm thinking about replacing these fillings, changing this bridge, you know, having an implant. They start to talk about that nice to have stuff. And when you say, well, I can do that for you, you're the person that they trust. So they're more likely to uptake that treatment. They're less likely to go away and shop around for, you know, bargain basement prices, because the trust value is more important to them. But, you know, I think the big one that we always come across, as I said at the start, is getting that financial security, and the plan definitely does that on a private level.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it's kind of a must to have that plan in place for the switch. So how much of the NHS income would you expect to switch the plan? Like how much would switch across, do you think? So
you can do a sort of dirty back of a fag packet calculation, if you like, which you would probably say as an industry standard is about 40%. Mm-hmm. Now, ideally, what you would want to do is work with that dentist early doors to do a bit of an audit of their diary, just to look at what does a standard week look like for them? How much time do they spend in a week delivering treatment versus delivering non-billable activity? So for that, I mean checkups, emergency consultations, you know, telephone consults, that sort of stuff. Whatever they're currently using, the percentage of non-billable time is what you'd want to replace. Now, you'll have some dentists who have been working like UDA Trojans and only want 30% of their time spent on checkups. But you'll have somebody else who's saying, actually, I want a nearer 50-50 split, because I want to have 25-minute checkup appointments. So if we can do that audit, it allows us to give the very best bespoke advice to the client. Some people just don't feel like they've got the time to be able to do that, and therefore we'd say look at replacing somewhere between 35 and 40% of your income as an average.
And then the rest of that is made up on the work that's upsold and found in the non-billable time. Is that right?
So you would never want to replace 100% contract value with plan, because otherwise you're going to just end up back in the position you're trying to get out of. So what you don't want to, if you were to replace 100% contract value with plan, all of a sudden you're going to have thousands of patients on a plan and no time to deliver any treatment, because you're going to have, you know, tens of thousands of exams to deliver and emergency consults. So you look to replace, like I say 40%. Mm-hmm. And then from that smaller patient base that will stay with you. So remember, you're only going to want probably, you know, about 40% of your fee paying adults to join a plan, because again, you're not wanting so many patients. You're then going to be able to have, you're going to have a nice committed patient base, because those people that join a plan with you when you choose to leave the NHS are the ones that will already be committed to you and have a good relationship. And then you will, from your treatment prescribing, you will deliver that other, 60-65% income from the treatment you'll deliver on that planned patient base.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it. It was you that kind of told me that first. It makes absolute sense when you say it out loud, but I would have thought the ideal is to replace 100% of the NHS income, but it's like, no, that'll give you the same issue. It'll clog you up. So no, I found that very interesting. So if someone started speaking with you, they've done the audit, you've got some idea of what they have to replace. What happens after they say yes?
So then we decide on what model they want to use to convert. So there's ultimately two models, what we refer to as a big bang model or an in-chair model. Now, the big bang model is preferable because it means that you send a letter to a patient, to all your patients, you give them a clear cut-off point that from this point in time, we're no longer delivering NHS dentistry. And if you want to continue to see me, I need you to join a plan. We enclose information about the plan options and give them the ability to join. Now, that really is the best model because it means there's a reduced amount of work for the practice or the clinician, and it means that you get the message out to your whole patient base at the same time. So you stop this rumor mill of somebody coming in and drip feeding it out in the pub or in the cafe to their friends and getting uproar before you've managed to talk to 2/3 of your patient base. But if you're looking to convert a very high proportion of patients, so if you were needing to get more than about 45% of your patient base to join a plan to develop that 40% income that we were talking about, you might consider an in-chair model. And that's where you talk to each patient as they come in. Now, the benefit of that is you can obviously answer each individual person's questions at the time they have them. It feels very personal. You talk to them in the surgery. The problem is that it can take 9 months to have that conversation with your whole patient base. It's very hard to keep momentum with anything for 9 months. And also, you run this risk of perhaps not carrying a consistent message. So you start talking a lot and then all of a sudden you stop and plan joiners drop off as a result. So the in-chair model can work, like I say, if you're looking to get a higher proportion of patients to join a plan, or if you're, say, a new owner and you actually haven't been in the practice very long and people don't know you yet. But as general, you'd look to go down the big bang route. Now, with that, we help you construct a letter that goes out to your patients. We send that letter on your behalf. It's all practice branded, it's signed by the dentist, and it's just a very reassuring letter that says to the patient, look, we want to continue to look after you in the way that we always have. Unfortunately, we don't really feel like the NHS is compatible with the level of care we want to give to you, but we'd like you to continue on this journey with us, and we'd like to be able to deliver on the promise of delivering exceptional dental care. And to do that, we'd like you to join a plan. And we encourage the patient to respond as quickly as possible, because what we say in the letter is there will be a maximum number of patients we can accept, because otherwise we're going to end up in the same position we're in now, and we won't be able to deliver the level of care we want. And we often find that line really prompts people to respond quickly because, patients are probably the best condition that they've ever been to receive these letters now. They've had 2.5 years of reading national press coverage and listening to these BBC investigations into the demise of NHS dentistry. And all of a sudden, retaining their dentist is more important than worrying about, can I find a £23.80 checkup somewhere else? So, we just want to get that letter out there. And it also gives really clear direction for the whole practice team. They have light at the end of the tunnel because they know in 12 weeks' time, when the notice to the LAT comes to an end, then we're done. The NHS is gone and we've got private patients. Whereas when you do this in-chair model, it can feel a little bit drawn out and, the practice team can lose motivation.
Yeah, definitely. I've had a few different versions of the in-chair model, and sometimes it's on the kind of all-you-can-eat plan. They feel obliged. They have to tell every patient. I kind of always say, don't do that. And I'm going to use the big bang model now. That's a really easy way of understanding it. And sometimes if someone becomes a specialist and they're giving away their plan to another associate, they feel they need to speak to everyone. And although everyone loves their dentist, they often actually really like the practice as well. So it's, they're kind of coming there for more than just the clinician. And Yeah, it was interesting what you were saying about people are kind of more in place to understand the benefits of a plan than ever, because I would have never thought a plan was about access before, but definitely it kind of is now. It kind of guarantees that you can be dentally healthy going forward if you're on a plan with a good practice.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the NHS has spent the whole of the pandemic banging this drum, reminding dentists there's no such thing as registration, and open your doors and see these emergencies that are pulling their teeth out with wire coat hangers. I mean, you know, you and I probably both know that sort of patient wouldn't have come to the dentist had we even offered them an appointment.
Yeah.
But it does just open up the conversation around access, that patients want reassurance that they're registered with a dentist, it's the dentist that they know and trust, and that they've got a designated practice that they can, you know, call up and talk to the receptionist and get advice and support. And the plan offers all of those things. Because it's on a private basis, you can say this plan is guaranteeing you registration at the practice and allocation to your specific dentist. And they're all the things the patient wants to hear. They want that peace of mind. And so, you know, like I said, patients are just probably sick to the back teeth of reading all of these articles about how NHS dentistry is falling about its ears. And so a lot of people now are just sat up and thinking, what do I need to do to be able to continue to look after my mouth in the way that I want to, without having to worry about, is my dentist just going to stop seeing me? And so, you know, the plan offers that reassurance.
Yeah. So after, did you say it's 12 weeks to do the process?
The notice period to your local area team or your local health board in Wales is 12 weeks. Okay. So, you know, if you're writing that letter, usually what we have to do is give termination about a week before we're going to send the letter, because the LAT or the LHB will ask to see a copy of your patient communication. So we send that letter to them, and then we just arrange for our mailing house to print the letters that are practice branded, pop them into envelopes and send them out to your patients. Yeah.
Right. And how does it work kind of post the 12 months? Is that almost when a kind of new relationship starts, when you're developing the plan and how to introduce it to more people? And that
so for that first 12 weeks, obviously our focus is going to be solely on just getting these NHS patients over the line and how do we get them to join the plan. But at the end of the 12 weeks and when our plan collections commence, then all of a sudden we're starting to build a new relationship now, because now we're not talking about how do we get you out of the NHS. It's about how do we continue motivation in terms of how are you now going to talk to your new patients about plan is the way you prefer to see your patients in the practice. How are you going to deal with that natural attrition and make sure that you're always in a growth phase rather than a steady decline phase, which can happen if you lose focus. And also, you know, what support can we give you to now develop you into a very successful private practice, which you weren't in a position to talk about before. So the relationship changes and it moves away from talking about removing the pain of the NHS to how do we energize the team? How do we develop a nice patient journey? You know, how do we keep momentum with plan? And we start to look at very different aspects of the business.
Amazing. So Matt, if someone's interested in kind of learning more, I guess, and what their options are, what would you recommend they do next?
I would say just reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. You know, all the advice we give to you is under no obligation. So we don't charge anything to have these appointments and give you advice. We can look at your specific practice circumstances, your reasons for wanting to leave the NHS, and we can run those viability assessments that we were talking about around your patient demographic. Is it viable for you to move away? Let's just do that work. So I would say visit our website, patientplandirect.co.uk. You can live chat to us there. You can email us. You can call our client services team. They'll then direct you to the relevant business development manager who will reach out to you personally and, you know, just start that conversation and start those assessments for you. Great
stuff. Well, thanks, Matt. That's been fantastic. And really appreciate that because it's going to be a massive thing over the next few years, and having that solid advice is going to be really important. So thanks again and speak soon.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Take care.